So what are your thoughts on the recent restructuring of halls, including the renaming of JCRs to halls communities? What are your thoughts on this? Flora, we'll go with you first and work back this way.
So I had quite a big involvement with this restructuring. I helped lead it along with Anjit as my role as halls officer. Personally, I am over the moon about all of this restructuring. I think that the whole structure of the halls committees is so much better at representing those students in halls and private rented accommodation. I think the inclusion of new roles like communities officer means that we really have a really strong base to allow people to interact really well with their halls and have a great time while they're in halls or private rented accommodation, whether they be first years, postgrads, international students, it doesn't matter. The new halls committees are so well prepared to work with that, and honestly, as I said, I'm over the moon with how everything went, and I think that we have a really strong position for the new halls committees who have been in their roles since the 1st of January. They already seem amazing, and yeah, they're fantastic.
Thank you, Flora. Rachika?
Yes, first of all, yeah, I've seen the hall structuring, and Flora, that was like an awesome job, and it's changed a lot. I saw that the new communities officer has been, there's been new communities officer. Close the mic? Okay, sorry. There's been a new communities officer, which does, I think, make a lot of difference, because a lot of people do tend to get like sort of left out, like the postgrads and stuff. I'm a postgrad student living in halls, and I feel that to an extent the engagement is not that great. But with the new hall structuring, I'm confident that things would just move up from here. So yes, I am happy with it.
Thank you, Rachika. And finally, Rebecca.
Okay, yeah, I think the restructuring is good, and I think that the fact that it's been linked to each SAB, that each position's been linked to each SAB is very good. What I would say is there has been some concerns that it might have been pushed through a little bit too quickly, or they're not really sure how it would really affect the role in itself. And I think what we need to do is we need to take some time in future to look at it objectively and see how it actually works in practice. But it does look positive in general, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it works next summer.
Okay, thank you very much. So Rachika, you've just mentioned being a postgrad student, and that comes up a lot in your manifesto as well. It's often raised that postgraduate students are not as engaged as other students, and promises are made every year to increase their involvement. How will you ensure this actually happens, and do you think as a postgrad student yourself that puts you at an advantage in this situation?
The only reason I would think that would put me at an advantage is because I've actually been through it and experienced it. When we first came here, it's like there is so much, so many, there are like 300 different, more than 250, close to 300 different societies. To be able to actually visit each and every one of them. I'm at the moment, unfortunately, only part of 2 societies. Like I'm part of India SOC, obviously, and then I'm part of LOPSOC. And the sad fact is, in both of these societies, there are very less postgrad students. Like they just tend to not generally engage themselves because there is, first of all, very less time for them to be, get involved in it, and sometimes they just feel that they feel a little out of the loop because all of this is aimed at undergrads and they feel they're too old for it. That does sometimes come up.
So how do you intend to get them more involved?
One of the things that I did think of, which would sort of accelerate the process, was when people are signing up, like when they're signing up to halls or they're signing up to SUSU, they should be like a sort of questionnaire, sort of like a skills hub. What do they like? And instead, like the bun fight is very useful because and this year I did not know that it wasn't there last year, but apparently this year it's sort of segregated into different parts where all the societies, depending on what they fall under, they were in the garden court or in the Jubilee Sports Hall, which accelerated the process. But if you have a system that sort of identifies what your interests are from before and suggests, gives you a list of societies that you could go to, that would definitely accelerate the process, and I wouldn't end up signing up to like 200 different societies on that one bun fight day, which I did not get to go to Jubilee Sports Hall. So it's sort of a lot in one day.
Yeah.
And probably by sort of filtering it, accelerating the process, that would really help.
Okay, thank you very much, Rachika. Flora, what do you think of Rachika's answer there? Do you think that she is at an advantage in engaging the postgrad community because she is a postgrad student? Do you feel like that's somewhere where you would lack being not a postgrad student?
I wouldn't say that I personally could do any less of a good job surrounding postgraduate students. I think Rachika is very fortunate to be in the position that she is a postgraduate student and therefore interacts with postgraduate students on a daily basis. But I don't for a second think that that would limit my ability to represent postgraduate students. I would love to implement a PGT committee that reflects the current PGR committee so that postgraduates can get proper academic representation, welfare representation, and have kind of somebody coordinating more social events for them. And
Flora, sorry, what exactly is the PGT committee?
So at the moment we have a postgraduate research committee, which is chaired by the current PGR officer, Mike, which has specific officers who are related to things like academic integrity, welfare provisions. You have somebody who's there to kind of organise social events, and the idea is that they support the PGR officer in helping them to kind of represent PGRs. And I'd love to create the same thing, but do so for PGTs, because I think often because they're only here for a year, they kind of get ignored within the whole SUSU kind of thing. So by creating a PGT committee, it really gives a really strong chance to get people involved, get people going to social events, making sure that people feel like they're represented academically to the university, and making sure that their welfare is taken into account too.
Okay, thank you, Flora. And finally, on to Rebecca. How would you respond to the two of them there and their response to postgraduate students and engaging them in the community?
Well, I don't think Rashika has an advantage per se, because I think all of us have different skills, abilities and experience within the zone in itself, and I think each of us are going to have advantages and disadvantages of the other, and you know, Flora's very right, the postgraduate taught positions are very limited in that they have not very much time here, they don't really tend to engage as much, but what we've got to remember is not every community is in a box, so we've got postgraduates in halls, we've got postgraduates in the different sites, we've got postgraduates that are international students, and all these different groups, they tend to overlap, and we have to try and kind of fit something unique and personal to them by addressing more than one particular issue, especially if they fit into more than one group. So I think we have to be careful not to just box people up. That's what I would say, but yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Like you said, it is a really broad role, and that is one of the difficulties, I think, with this zone. Okay, so on to the next question. Do you feel you have an appreciation of the broad scope of international students at the university? Flora, we're going to start with you.
So, in my position as halls officer, and we'll keep coming back to this, but I've been really fortunate to work with a really kind of broad group of international students, and within the halls committee elections this year, we've had kind of like a record high of international students running for roles. So, yes, I am British, I've spent my entire life in England, but I don't think for a second that means that I can't interact with different groups within the international community here at the University of Southampton. Internationals represent approximately 25% of the student population here, and I would love the opportunity to get to know every single international society, get to know their customs, what they enjoy, their food, and honestly, I'm always learning.
And how would you intend to do that, Flora?
I think I would love to organise, so at the moment we have Culture Week, and that's looking fantastic, and I want to take that even bigger and make it even better. I want to take it to all the sites, be that Winchester, the Knock, Southampton General Hospital, even looking out to kind of our Malaysian campuses and things like that to really try and broaden out our reach with Culture Week. And I'd also love, within my first kind of student community zone committee meeting, I'd love to sit down with all the presidents of all the international societies and really get their views on how they think that student community zones should be run and how they think SUSU should interact with them.
Okay, thank you very much, Flora. Ruchika?
Okay, obviously I'm an international student, and I think
do you feel like that puts you at an advantage in engaging the international student community?
Slightly, but not like, I wouldn't say that it puts anybody else at a disadvantage because of that. I think one of the major problems of international students is that they're more comfortable with each other. We need to somehow get, we have come here for an international experience. So just sitting in your own little boxes just does not help you engage with other people. We need to implement more international nights. Like suppose at the halls we can have international nights which are set up by the international students living at those halls, so that the other non-internationals can come and experience their culture. We can set up a weekly, culture week. We can have the international societies, the society of the week, so then they come and they set up something in the SUSU building, where like how, for example, just recently we had the, Malaysian for a day thing. Something like that, like almost every week or every fortnight, which would really help them interact. In the union films, apparently there are international films that are being run, but it's not advertised properly, and it does not reach the everybody. And I think that's just the major problem of being an international student. You are away from home, and you do tend to just be with the people that you are the most comfortable with. But we need to get everybody out of their shells, because we are here for an international experience.
Yeah, thank you very much. Flora, what did you think of that point there about international nights? I know that you picked up on that. Do you think that Rachika's got a point there?
I think she's got a very good point there. I think that there is so much scope within the space of SUSU itself, and within all the halls, we have 12 halls. And there's no reason why we couldn't hold kind of international cuisine nights. We could show films from different cultures. I know Glen Eyre has a cinema room. There's so much potential for us to put on so much more for international students, and really encourage this kind of intermingling of different people and getting people to understand different cultures. And honestly, I think we have so much potential for that, and it would be great to see that happen.
Okay, thank you, Flora. Rebecca, if you'd like to respond to both of the girls there and their answers.
Yeah, I mean, I've been the community zone student groups rep for this year, and in that time I've talked to a lot of international societies. I've met up with them. I've actually gone out actively seeking out their committees, spoken to them. They do want to get engaged, but like Rachika said, they tend to keep themselves to themselves, and I've tried several times to try and get a kind of a forum together of the community zone societies.
How have you tried to create a forum?
Well, I have a group on Facebook. I regularly keep in contact with them. I've tried polls. I've tried emailing different, making different posts, trying to get dates to do it, and there's not many responses. And I think that we need to try and, although we want to engage them more, we need to try and not be naive about the fact they are not always willing to. But what we need to do, we need to actually make ourselves put ourselves out there more.
Yeah. How are you hoping to do that?
We need to just have increased communication levels. We need to meet with them when they're having events, and encourage them to have events, go to their societies, speak to their members, not just their committees. Yeah, I mean, and we need to also find there's more space for them as well, because a lot of the time the problems they have is when they want to do things as a space issue, or they're not always sure how to book rooms or get people to come to events. So I think societies are a big deal, and this is something that needs to be done for the zone, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Rachika, what do you think about that point that Rebecca just made about communication? Do you think that's really where the issue lies?
Communication in terms of when we come here, we're not very comfortable with the English language, and that tends to be an issue. But if you're talking about communication in terms of how much of information SUSU does give us, I think that can be improved, but I think it was pretty good. When I came here, the amount of information that SUSU does give us in terms of international students, that is good.
Would you like to help with the learning of the English language then? Is that something that you'd like to implement?
Yes. In fact, it would be like, suppose you have an international forum where people can come and give their ideas, what they think, what they want to implement in their own language. I think people are more comfortable talking in their own language, at least for the first couple of times before they talk about start talking in English. And English support as a whole, I think that should be a continued support. Pre-sessional courses do run, but I do think it's necessary for it to be a continued support throughout the year, throughout the years that they're here, that we are here.
So you're saying that you'd have original mixers in the native language and then have English support throughout your years here?
Yes,
Okay.
so that they don't feel sort of left out because they have to talk in a language that's not theirs, but at the same time they're also getting to know that language. They're getting to know English as well, because I do know there's someone in my class who sits with a dictionary, and that is sort of
Isolating.
It's isolating and it's painful. I mean, trying to understand a simple sentence takes so long, which I feel it should not, and that's a major problem that I do wish to address.
So what are your exact plans with helping an issue like that?
Continued English support. Continued, we do have language courses in various courses in German and French. I think there should be an English one as well, which is sort of not just a one course over a time period. It should be a continued thing.
Continuous support.
Continuous support.
Okay, thank you very much, Rachika. Okay, so Flora, this one we're going to start with you. So it is promised every year to increase the involvement of students from Winchester. Where do you think the correct balance lies between their integration and independence?
This is a tough one, and I think with the creation of the Winchester Committee this year, we have a far better kind of method of representing students at Winchester, and I think the engagement from Winchester is at an all-time high this year. I think the one thing that we need to remember is that a lot of Winchester students see themselves and see WSA as a separate entity to certainly Highfield and potentially SUSU. And I think certainly one of my plans is to have the satellite site survey, in which we go out to all the satellite sites, not just Winchester, and find out how they think SUSU should interact with them and how they want to interact with SUSU. I think this is the sort of thing that we're still working on, and I don't think there's any kind of best fit or perfect answer. But I think asking Winchester students how they want to interact with SUSU and then adjusting the way that we interact with them accordingly is the best way to achieve the kind of perfect balance between Winchester and Southampton.
Okay, Rebecca?
Okay, yeah, so there's a bit of a juxtaposition that goes on here. Winchester, as a whole, generally want to be seen as having their own identity, and that's something that I've been kind of trying to not push for, but to make other people aware of for a while. I've been trying to get societies to sort of go over there and actually actively get involved with Winchester people in Winchester itself, which has been somewhat successful. I'm doing a Winchester survey about societies just as a whole, so hopefully we'll come up with the results of that fairly soon. So whoever's communities will be able to sort of use that as well to help with that. But generally, I think they do want to be a part of SUSU, but they want to have their own way of doing it. So I think what we should do is where we have things like karaoke night, your skills, there's societies that are based at Winchester now that are just for Winchester students, and we need to. A recent thing has been that we do health and safety training for committee members in societies. We need to go and do that at Winchester so they don't have to come over here. I think the implementation of the Winchester shuttle bus has been absolutely revolutionary. It's fantastic, but we need to have it during the weekends if possible, and extended hours so that they feel they can come to societies at weekends, join in sports here, and yeah, that sort of thing.
Thank you, Rebecca. Rachika, what do you think of Rebecca's response there? Did you agree?
I agree to most of it, especially the Winchester shuttle bus. That was like a really good job that the current VP student communities did do. But as she said, the frequency needs to be increased, possibly over the weekends as well. And apart from that, Winchester students at the moment, they have their own committee, which has probably revolutionized the way that it works. And which is a really good thing, because they do have their own identity. They're a complete different segment of people. They have a completely different way of thinking. I mean, it's Winchester School of Art. This is Highfield, which is all the engineering and stuff. So it's completely different. And they have a different way of working things, a different way of functioning, and they should have their own identity. But I do feel they should continue to be under the umbrella of SUSU, because we can probably support them a lot in whatever they want to do. But they should be like a regular sort of, meetings and stuff to see what do they want, but while of course being under the umbrella of SUSU, yeah.
Okay, Flora, what did you think of that that we should be under the umbrella of SUSU, but also kind of celebrate the differences between Winchester and Southampton?
The umbrella of SUSU can be quite a vague term, because I think SUSU at the moment has a tendency of putting slightly more emphasis on certain groups of people and slightly less on others. Personally, I think that we should be letting Winchester make their own decisions and interact with SUSU as they wish and not interact as they wish, because they are so different. They have a completely different makeup to the makeup that we have here. They study very, very different courses with very, very different demands. I completely agree with things like the shuttle bus should definitely be extended to weekends, because we have so much going on up here at weekends that it would be lovely to have Winchester students here. Likewise, it would be lovely to see Southampton students going up to Winchester and really kind of getting in touch with what is an incredible city with loads of really cool architecture, loads of really cool museums, loads of really cool pubs, things like that. There's so much going on in Winchester that Southampton students can explore as well. But I'm very conscious that I don't think that SUSU should impose itself on a body that doesn't want to be imposed on, and I think we need to be very careful with that.
Okay, thank you very much, Flora. So this is one of my favourite questions actually for this zone. What have you liked and disliked about VP Community's policies over the last few years? So we go with Rachika first.
I honestly don't know much. I just joined in September. But a policy that I really did like, which has, I think, come out a couple of years ago, was the fact that international students, postgraduate students, they get the 1 year in halls. That is compulsory for them. That was one of the major reasons that I did choose University of Southampton over the other universities that did offer me. And I think that was probably my favorite policy till now. A policy that I dislike, I don't think I've come across one yet. So probably, if I do come across one, I shall get back to you.
That's me. Okay, Rebecca, what about you?
Okay, as I said a minute ago, the Winchester shuttle bus has been talked about for years. It hasn't happened until this year. It's been very, very good. It's brilliant. We should carry it on. The training for freshers reps this year was much better as well. I was really impressed with how it went. So that's good. I mean, I'm not sure they have specific policies, but in terms of actually doing these things, it's been very good. This is not something I dislike as such, but it's something that I feel is missing. There needs to be more focus on placement. Provide some sort of transport or mode of transport for people on placements who are health science students. I think particularly where people go to places like the Basingstoke hospital campus, because I think where we've got groups of people that there's quite a few people that go there, we need to actively try and implement that. And it just means that they have a safer, easier journey to and from placement. And it's something that affects them, it's something that's been affecting them for a while, and it's not really been talked about. So I think that's something that perhaps needs to be looked at more. So it's not dislike, it's just more of a kind of in addition to, really. But yeah.
And Flora, how would you respond to what Rebecca's just been saying there?
I think you have a very good point about placement hours, and I think something that I personally really dislike about the community zone as a whole, and maybe this is kind of reflecting on SUSU as a whole at the moment, is the fact that we're not supporting junior doctors, or we don't have an official stance on the junior doctors contract situation. I think given the number of medical students that we have here and the recent news stories that have arisen, I think the time is ripe for SUSU to stand there and be like, we do not agree with this. We do not support changes that are adversely affecting our students. So that's something I'd love to see happen in the very near future, is that SUSU takes a very wide-ranging but a very specific stance on the junior doctors' contracts.
Rebecca, would you like to respond to that comment?
Yes, I would. A couple of weeks ago, we had a union council, and a policy was passed that SUSU would actually actively support campaigners for the junior doctors' problems and provide space for them to campaign. So and also a lot of the officers we have, especially sabbatical officers, have actually voiced their support for junior doctors striking.
So SUSU have made an official stance?
I would say it's somewhat official. I think the wording of the policy might be slightly, I think I probably need to go back and read that, but yeah, it has voiced support, so. Yeah.
Okay, Flora, would you like to respond to that?
Okay, the way I was in Union Council, I was listening to that policy when it was presented, and the way I interpreted it was that it was aimed at supporting one specific strike about a week later, and that it didn't give an all-encompassing view on how SUSU stands around the junior doctor situation. What I'd like to see is policy that makes our stance very official and also makes it quite public, because you don't really see anywhere, unless you trawl through the Union Council minutes, anything that says we have supported this piece of policy. I want to see this out in the open, and for everybody to see that SUSU are standing up for junior doctors, and that they are going to make that stance and continue to do so while these challenges are happening.
Okay, thank you very much, Flora. I'm going to have to stop you there. We have run out of time. But thank you so much, girls, for your time and for answering those questions there. We will be back in 10 minutes with our candidate for VP in Engagement. It is the uncontested Dan Varley.